Apple TV has a strange problem right now. It makes some of the best science fiction on television, and almost nobody argues with that. But its newest returning show just posted the widest critic-audience gap in its own history, and I want to figure out why, because the reasons say a lot about how modern TV storytelling actually works. Let's set the scene first. Apple's sci-fi lineup reads like a greatest hits list. Severance, For All Mankind, Foundation, Monarch, Legacy of Monsters, Dark Matter. Nearly all of them land well with critics and audiences at the same time, which is rare. Most streamers get one or the other. Apple somehow gets both repeatedly, which is part of why a lot of people quietly consider it the strongest sci-fi platform out there right now, even without the subscriber numbers of Netflix or Disney+. Then there's Pluribus, technically Apple's most watched show ever. A 99% critic score, which is close to unheard of, but audiences only gave it 68%. So even Apple's biggest hit has this weird fracture in it. Critics obsessed, viewers split. Now Silo Season 3 walks into that same pattern, except sharper. A perfect 100% from critics. Audiences down at 58%. That's not a small gap. That's the widest divide the show has ever had, and Silo has always had some divide, just never this one. Quick check on the numbers, because context matters here. Season 1 landed at 88 critic, 70 audience. Season 2 came in at 92 and 67. Both seasons had gaps, sure, but nothing close to a 42-point spread. Also worth flagging, this is still early data. 18 critic reviews, under 50 audience ratings. Small sample. These numbers will shift as more people watch and rate it. But even as a snapshot, it tells you something real is going on beneath the surface. So what actually changed in Season 3? Structurally, quite a bit. The first 2 seasons moved pretty much in a straight line, present day, following Juliet Nicholson, played by Rebecca Ferguson, as she uncovers the truth about the silo. Season 3 splits into 2 timelines running side by side. One is set in the past, following Congressman Daniel Keene and journalist Helen Drew as they stumble into the conspiracy that eventually created the silos and the poisoned world outside them. The other timeline stays in the present, where Juliet is now mayor of Silo 18, but with a twist. She's lost her memory of everything from the last 3 months, including whatever happened when she was sent outside at the end of Season 2. That's the fork in the road. Critics are largely here for it. Audiences less so. Let's go through both sides properly, because both have legitimate points. Start with why critics are so into this season. The past timeline is basically new territory for the show. We've spent 2 seasons treating the silo's origin as a locked box. Hints here, fragments there, but never the full picture. Season 3 cracks that box open. Watching 2 ordinary people accidentally walk into the birth of this entire conspiracy recontextualizes everything we already know. It's the kind of storytelling move that rewards patient viewers, because details from Season 1 suddenly mean something different once you see where they came from. Screen Rant's own review put it at an 8 out of 10, and the reviewer specifically called the past storyline the most compelling part of the season's return, saying it puts the show's mysteries into a completely new context. That view isn't isolated. It's basically the consensus among critics. The origin story angle is the season's biggest strength on paper. The present-day storyline gets a more mixed critical response, even from reviewers who like the season overall. Ferguson playing a softer, less certain version of Juliet is interesting on paper, a mayor who doesn't fully trust her own footing. But multiple reviews flag pacing problems here specifically. Scenes that linger too long. A present-day plot that critics generally agree drags compared to the tighter, more purposeful past timeline. So even the positive reviews aren't uniformly positive. It's more accurate to say critics love one half of the season and are lukewarm on the other half. And the overall score still comes out strong because the good half is that good. Now here's where audiences diverge hard. And honestly, I think their frustration is more understandable than a simple score would suggest. The core complaint is the amnesia. Juliet losing her memory right after one of the biggest cliffhangers in the show's history feels, to a lot of viewers, like the show hitting pause on its own momentum. Season 2 ended with major reveals. Audiences were ready for immediate fallout. Instead, they get a lead character who can't remember what just happened to her, which means the story has to slow down and rebuild context that viewers already have. That's a rough ask. You're basically asking the audience to be more patient than the protagonist. There's a second layer to this complaint that's easy to miss if you only skim the surface reviews. It's not just Juliet who's stuck. Because she can't explain what happened outside, the people around her in Silo 18 are also frozen, unable to move their own arcs forward, because the one person with answers doesn't have them anymore. So the amnesia doesn't just limit one character's journey. It bottlenecks the entire present day, cast at once. That's a structural problem, not just an emotional one, and it's probably the single biggest driver of the audience score. There's also a broader sentiment among viewers that Season 3's willingness to change format, splitting timelines, slowing the present, isn't a bold swing, it's just a disruption to a formula that was already working. Critics tend to reward structural ambition. Audiences often reward continuity and momentum. Season 3 leans hard into the first instinct, and that's exactly the kind of choice that tends to split a fan base, especially one that had 2 seasons of build-up expecting a payoff, not a detour. Here's a detail that actually explains a lot of this, and it comes from the source material. Silo the show is based on Hugh Howey's trilogy, and Season 3 adapts the second book called Shift. In the novel, Shift is almost entirely a past timeline story. Juliet barely appears until the very final pages, and when she does show up, her memory is completely intact. There's no amnesia subplot in the books at all. So why add it to the show? Simple, structural necessity. If the show followed the book exactly, Juliet and the present day cast the audience has followed since episode 1 would basically vanish for most of the season. That's a huge risk for a television adaptation, benching your lead for 10 episodes. The amnesia device is the show's workaround, a way to keep Juliet technically present and technically active, while still giving the writers room to tell the past timeline story the book actually centers on. It's a clever fix for a structural problem, but it's also, according to a lot of viewers, a fix that creates its own new problem because now she's present but sidelined in a different way, unable to drive her own plot forward. That's honestly the whole tension of this season in one sentence. It solves an adaptation problem by creating a pacing problem, and depending on whether you value structural ambition or narrative momentum more, that trade either works for you or it really doesn't. One more piece of context worth knowing before you go and expecting a full wrap-up. This is not the final season. Silo has already been confirmed to end with Season 4, and both Season 3 and Season 4 were filmed back-to-back. Season 4 will adapt the third novel, Dust. So if the pacing complaints about Season 3 bother you, there's a reasonable case that some of the slower setup this season is table setting for a faster, more conclusive final run next time. That doesn't fix the pacing today, but it does suggest the show still has a plan and that the amnesia arc is likely a bridge, not a permanent state. So where does that leave us? Silo Season 3 isn't a show that suddenly got worse. It's a show that took a real structural risk, adapting a book that wasn't built around its existing lead character, and found a workaround that critics mostly reward as ambitious and audiences mostly experience as a slowdown. Both reactions are valid. They're just measuring different things. Critics are grading the swing. Audiences are grading the experience of watching it unfold week to week. If you've watched Season 3 already, I'm genuinely curious which side of this you land on. The past timeline is the highlight, or the amnesia plot as the sticking point. Drop that in the comments. And if you want more breakdowns like this on the shows actually worth your streaming subscription, subscribe, because there's a lot more coming.